it gives me great pleasure today to reintroduce Victoria Irwin from Eagle Harbour Books. And Eagle Harbour Books is our sponsor today. So they asked me to tell you that today's sponsor is Eagle Harbour Book Company. It has connected readers with writers since 1970. It is a full-service, locally owned, proudly independent bookstore. You can find new and used books and an expert staff to help you find the right book for yourself or for a gift. Books ordered through their website may be picked up and paid for in the bookstore with no shipping charge or mailed directly to your home. Curbside contact-free pickup is also available as an option on either website or phone orders. So, Victoria, I was so thrilled. I saw your huge, big, beautiful article in the Seattle Times a couple of Sundays ago. And it's we're also glad that the Danielsons bought the store and it's still on Main Street and it has grown and grown. And so we're thrilled today for you to come here and tell us all about these new books we should be reading.
Well, hello. Yes, I have to tell you, I moved here about 12 years ago. And even before I arrived, I knew about Eagle Harbour Book Company. At the time, Morley Horder was the owner. And I applied for a job before I even arrived. And it was the best introduction to the island anywhere. And I just have been delighted to spend I call this my retirement job, but yeah, it's been great. And we really appreciate it. We're doing fine during all of this craziness going on in the world. We've had bigger years, but we're just really surviving. And I think it's because, as Janet points out, the Danielsons are dedicated owners. We've got a great staff. We're getting younger staff right now who they need to be trained a little, but they're still excellent, exciting. So we're going to get to town. So I assume today what I'm planning to talk about is upcoming books and then some of the books that are most recently released, just an idea of what are some great fall reads. And I'd love to do a quick go round to hear what everyone else is reading right now. Does anybody have a new book that they're super excited about? Sheila? Do you have?
Oh yeah, I can do that. I'm reading The Warmth of Other Suns, which is not a new book, but oh my goodness, word for word, it's going to take me all 3 weeks from the library.
Now, have you read Cast yet?
I have Cast sitting there. I bought that one. And I have that one sitting, but I wanted to read this one first. So I am reading it, and it's extraordinary, extraordinary writing. For nonfiction, it's just amazingly interesting. The other one I read was I've got multitudinous books, and I shouldn't say this to you, Victoria, but it's all from the library. I've got thousands of books from the library.
We love the library, don't we?
Oh gosh, I tell you. I go over there and John says, "Oh, here she is again." Anyway, my most favorite book that I've read in the last little bit, other than this one that I'm on right now, is called The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
I loved that book. That's one of my favorite recommendations.
I'm glad.
Too. Yeah.
No, it's poetically beautiful and beautifully written and apropos and beautifully written.
One of the things I've been trying to say to our readers as they come into the store is how, as we're all seeking to understand and do better at, the whole history of our country, the racism and all, it's very important to read all those factual books, nonfiction books, but some of the fiction books have led me to places I hadn't considered before. And that is one that's a prime example.
Amen.
Yeah. The fact that when we were growing up, Gone with the Wind was the story about, yikes. But this,
I know.
Yeah. So there's some really excellent books. So yes, I won't dally too long on that. But yeah, if anyone ever wants to talk to me, I've been making a real effort, actually for the past year and a half, to be reading contemporary Black authors, and I've been wowed. So who else would like to jump in? I see all of you there.
I'll jump in. I too loved The Water Dancer. I've read The Warmth of Other Suns before. I started on the Overstory, and it's 501 pages long. It should have been 400 pages long because the latter part of it got a little verbose for me.
Yeah.
And my secret passion has been reading Louise Penny, which I'm on her brand new book right now.
Oh, yeah.
And and my other secret passion is Tana French, who is actually born in America. And it was at the Seattle Arts and Lectures. Oh, she's coming anyway. I love her books.
Do you have The Searcher yet, which is her most recent?
No, not yet.
Just came out yesterday, and oh boy, I've heard it's, someone said they think it's her best. So
oh, good.
Is it Dublin Police Department still?
I believe so. I have to admit I haven't read it yet, but I think it's picking up. Yeah.
The reason I ask is because
I don't think it is. I think it's a standalone one, Sheila. Her last one about the tree.
Anyone else want to pipe in?
I like nonfiction. Hi, Victoria.
Oh, hi.
Did you all read it?
I'm reading it, and wow.
It's incredible. Bob Woodward's a very good writer, and that's what he's done all of his life. And whew.
I know, that's all I can say. Is everyone registered to vote?
Yeah. Well, it's just amazing to me that he called Bob Woodward and wanted the interviews and wanted to be recorded.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just flabbergasts me. I can't get my brain around that whole thing.
Well, part of it is his brain is just, he is such a narcissist in a sense.
Yeah.
That's why he's thinking, I can get this journalist to do this. And
right.
Yeah. So,
So I hope everybody reads it. It's not easy to read, but there you go. It's the truth.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm reading.
So anyone else before I launch into what's coming up? I have this very organized list of books. So I thought I was going to get this all typed up this morning. I'm going to start with a book that's going to be out, I believe, in November. It's by a Northwest author, Jess Walter. Many of you may have read some of her earlier books. This is called The Cold Millions. And it is, again, I haven't read this one, but I know someone who has. If you liked, the sort of Hemingway kind of stories, that sagas of families, or even recently Carl Miolantis' book, Deep River, about Southwestern Washington, this one is going to knock your socks off from what I'm hearing. It's set in Spokane. It's union making and breaking. It follows two young brothers who were orphans and were, trying to make a life. One was very much eager to help the unions get going. The other one wasn't quite as, he didn't share the idealism, but it's a fabulous look at our part of the world, the Wild West, around the early 20th century. As a side note, my grandfather was being raised in Yakima in that time period. He was born like in 1890 something. And the stories he used to tell me as I was a child just blew my socks off there too. He was highly educated for his family. He went to school all the way through 8th grade. But the things people did to survive and to build lives at that point, and then the big bosses who lived up on the hills. So this book has it all. I would highly recommend that. You can pre-order it, or you can sign up at the library, I assume, and get on the list there. So
that's The Cold Millions by Jess Walker, right?
Jess Walter.
Walters, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should. Cold Millions. And that will be out, again, I think it's either late October or early November. And for those who like nonfiction, I'm sure everyone is waiting to see Barack Obama's A Promised Land.
Yeah.
We're all taking bets to see how well he does against the release of Becoming last year, because Michelle Obama's book broke all sorts of records for us. And let's see if Barack can, I stand up to her wonderfulness too. But yeah, they're both, it should be a good read for people who are interested in politics and what's going on and what our future can look like. So that's something I'm very, very excited about. This one's out already. Oh, no, I'm going to skip that one. I'll come back to that later. I'm going to list a few books that are recently out that people just might have an interest in because some of these authors you've read before. And one is the new book, Jack, by Marilyn Robinson, who did Gilead. And it is a set in the same community, Gilead, that she created some times ago. I see that. Yeah. And it involves an interracial relationship in this quiet, I believe, Iowa town, someplace in the Great Middle. And if you liked her earlier books, I think this one supposedly is just sublime. Alice Hoffman has done a book called Monogamy, which is fiction, and it's about a couple who meet, one had already divorced, the other one, they were sort of like an older late life couple, not late life, but they met. He was a bookseller, she was a photographer. They had this wonderful storied marriage, lived for years beautifully until, as the review says, one morning she woke up and he didn't. And in the aftermath of his death, she finds out, quite to her shock, that he'd been unfaithful to her. And she, it's a story of how she moves forward in all of this and how she doesn't wallow in a certain way on how her whole life shifted. But very interesting read, very thoughtful writer. Oh, Utopia Avenue. That's out already. It is a book that John at the bookstore has recommended for folks. Let's see if I can see that right there, by David Mitchell. And it's sort of a love letter to the 60s and all the musicians, all the rock bands and all. And John just says it is an excellent read. He says a delightfully addictive novel from a masterful storyteller. So it takes place in London just as the British invasion is taking off, and it has lots of great characters and lots of fun. A nonfiction book that I recently read that's been out for a little bit, but not too long, is called The Owls of the Eastern Ice. And it's by Jonathan Slaught, Slaght, I think. And that is just a fascinating book about the world's largest owl, which lives in a very small territory in far, far eastern Russia and parts of Japan. It's kind of a Wild West out there. And it's about this American biologist who's trying to get his doctorate and decides to study the owl and help create a conservation plan for it. And part of the reason he wants to do that is if he can do a plan for that owl, it's also going to have a good effect for the salmon in that area and for the tigers in that area. So it's all kind of interconnected. But it's this really interesting story of this American showing up in this part of Russia that's kind of suspicious of foreigners, and lots of vodka, lots of cups of tea, and fascinating science. That's why I liked it. I'm sort of a science nerd, and it's a great armchair travel at the same time. You're going to learn a lot about species over in that part of the world and everywhere in terms of how we should be working to protect them. And also at the same time, let the people who live in those areas have a good living. They're not trying to say no logging anytime. They're just trying to say, let's do it in ways that make sense. So that is a good book. Going back to this book memorial, I want to try to find this.
Victoria, what was that? Owls of the what?
Eastern Ice.
Ice. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's pretty icy there. You're going to be sitting in a lot of snow as you sit in your armchair reading it. There was an interesting photo book called Loving that was reviewed in the Washington Post recently. Now, this isn't a book to read so much. I mean, yes, it's interesting, but it's pictures of men who love each other, who from like the 1800s up into, you know, fairly like the 60s or something like that. So they're historic photos. And there's this couple who started collecting these after they ran across a photo in a little, you know, shop that sold old postcards and pictures. And I was just, the love that's expressed in these pictures was so touching and so revealing. And so it is a horribly expensive book. It's a coffee table book. But if you know anyone who likes that kind of thing, it really, I think, will melt hearts in a way. You can't help but think that these people are just, you know, they didn't care what was going on in their times. They loved each other. So I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I just thought it was amazing. We don't have it in the bookstore yet because, you know, it's a $65 book, and that bringing a book in like that is not necessarily going to sell real easy. So we wait until people start asking, and then we'll bring it in. So coming out later here, how many people have read books by N. Scott Momaday? He's a Native American writer. Hang on a second. I'm going to look up some of the ones that you probably, if I jog your memory, you may remember. Oops, I didn't do that right. Let me try that again. This is why I should have typed up my notes, and I apologize. Okay. This is called Earthkeeper. He wrote a book called The House of Dawn, or The House Made of Dawn, The Way to Rainy Mountain. So Earthkeeper is a book, looks like it's out November 3rd, and it's his reflections on both his upbringing as a child and a young man who was raised on reservations throughout the Southwest, and about, it's kind of like a prayer for the continuity of our land, of the Americas, of, you know, how words can be medicine in a way, and how our landscape and our connection to it can also be something important to all of us, and the way to go forward. So he has preserved and celebrated North American, Native American culture throughout his life as a writer. And he's a member of the Kiowa tribe. And so he has a real connection to the stories, original stories on this continent. And so I would highly recommend that book too.
That House Made of Dawn was amazing.
Homeland Elegies is a book by a young man of Middle Eastern extraction who was raised in the United States. And it's about a family that leaves Pakistan, I believe, and comes and settles in the Midwest. And an ironic twist, the father, who's a cardiologist, becomes the cardiologist for Donald Trump, and begins to really be influenced, and it adopts his lifestyle and dresses like he does, and goes to the tailor and begins chasing women. And then there's the mother, who's still very much connected to her homeland back in Pakistan. And then the young man.
His name is Avyad.
Thank you. Yes. And in fact, the character in the book, who's the young protagonist, has his name. So, you know, you get the sense that in a way he's letting this speak for himself.
Yeah.
And a very interesting look at family and that sort of, you know, suture between your past and your present and your future. And very thoughtful book, one of the best books of the year. So that one is out right now.
What was the name of that one?
Homeland Elegies.
Homeland. Thank you.
Now, have any of you read John Meacham's latest book, His Truth is Marching On, about John Lewis?
No.
That would be a good book to pick up at some point. Meacham is a beautiful writer, a great historian, and his belief in a way is that John Lewis's life is almost, up there with the founding fathers in terms of what he did for our country at a time when he could have turned and, he really worked hard for all of us. So that's a great read. It's an inspiring read. Mystery people, are there Ruth Ware fans out here?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, have you read One by One? That's her latest.
No, I haven't read her latest. Is it good?
Yes, it's a real, sort of Agatha Christie-like whodunit, where these people are all trapped in this place because a blizzard has come in, and so they're trapped in this sort of big, I can't remember if it's a resort. Well, they're out in the snow, and one by one, people start dying. So it's a mystery. It's a good read. So.
The Leave the World Behind has got rave reviews from the New York Times and the New Yorker in the last couple of days.
Oh yes, that's true. Have you?
And I looked up the gentleman's name, and I'm not familiar. It's Ronan Farrow.
Yes, that is a great book. That's one where there's a family from Manhattan who goes out to the Hamptons and rents an Airbnb to sort of just get out of the city. And while they're there, one day this older couple shows up, a Black couple, and they say this is their house, and they've left Manhattan because there's scary stuff going on. It's dark, and can they come? They want to be able to spend the night there. They don't want to be in a place that's frightening. And so that's the setup. And it's what happens then afterwards. Apparently there's, I guess, I don't know if it's inspired by the pandemic. It could not have been, because that was too recent. But yes, that's a really sort of interesting, tense, good book. Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, the Washington Post says it is brilliant, suspenseful examination of race and class.
Yes.
And that's a zing. Yeah, so it's got reviewed by heavens, everybody. The New York Times, Washington Post, the New Yorker, you name it. It's got Amazon, it's got a review. Goodreads, yes, USA Today. So that must be.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great one, and just came out yesterday, so you can obviously pick it up someplace. By the way, I wanted to let any of you know, I know we're all looking for bargains these days. At the bookstore, as part of our, we're concerned about the supply chain is having a really hard time, and mail, we're all concerned about what's going to happen with that. So we're encouraging people to shop early this year for themselves and for others. And we're having our Cyber Mondays every couple weeks now until the holidays. And on Monday, this Monday, October 12th, you can get 20% off a book if you order it online on our website. You can still come and pay and pick up in the store, but you just go on our website that day, anytime that day, and there'll be, as you're checking out, it'll ask for a coupon code, which is just EHBC20, and that will get you 20% off the book automatically. So if you think you're going to buy the book, you want to save a little bit, you can wait until Monday, and you can even then come pick it up, that day or the next day. So that's something to think about as you're looking at what's going on here. Ronan Farrow, who writes for the New Yorker, and obviously is Mia Farrow's and Woody Allen's son, has written a new book called The War on Peace, The End of Diplomacy and the Decline of America. He's a very interesting writer and reporter, and obviously he's very well known now for a lot of the work he did on the Me Too, or before the Me Too movement helped spur it. But he was, and during his short career, or not short career, his young career, he worked for the State Department, and has real knowledge. And so this is an interesting look at what's happening at that level in a democracy and the U.S. abroad. So I would highly recommend that one too. In terms of kind of fun books, there's a book coming out called A Wealth of Pigeons, and it's by Steve Martin. Yes, that's Steve Martin. And hang on a second, I'm going to switch over here. You can still see me when I do this, can't you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to look like I'm typing because I am. And it's illustrated by New Yorker cartoonist Harry Bliss. And so they kind of decided what would be fun. Steve Martin has said that he looks as comedy as cartooning as comedy's last frontier. He, having done stand-up and sketches and things like that, he thought it would be fun to work with this cartoonist and throw out an idea and then invite that guy to do cartoons. So he had the caption and cartoon ideas, and then Harry did the artwork. And it's funny. It's you know, it's a again, sort of a picture table book, but I think it'll be a great holiday book and something that people will enjoy. That's one I'm looking for. I'm going to go back.
There's one that I'd like to mention. I remembered reading the Stay and Fight. It's
yeah.
by Madeline Fitch. And
Yes.
Becky and Simon live here on the island and are really dear friends of mine. So I got a chance to watch her read it at your place.
Right. Wasn't she wonderful?
Oh, she is fantastic. And the book is excellent.
Yes, it really is.
And it's a finalist for the Penn Hemingway Award for debut novel.
And it's about to come out in paperback. So
oh, is it? Oh,
good news.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
It's funny. Oh yes, it's funny, and it's oh wow, it really cuts to the bone.
A lot of poignancy in it.
Yes, yep. A lot. Set sort of in that Appalachian area. And sort of a family that kind of makes themselves almost by accident. And it really is a telling story of these times too. So they live a very hard scrabble life. And it's unique. Yeah, I love Madeline. That was a fun reading, wasn't it? Let's see. Alice Hoffman has a new book, Magic Lessons. I know she's a perennial favorite for most of us. And this one is, hang on a second. Magic Lessons, Hoffman. So it's a prequel to her book, Practical Magic. So it's it's a bit of fantasy. It's about a family that was in Salem. Maria Owens in the earlier book, it was a matriarch of a line of women who were featured in Practical Magic and the Rules of Magic. So it's all about this baby who was found abandoned and raised and came to America. So those are always great reads. Anything else that people are thinking about or?
Yes, Virginia, could you please comment on yesterday, the list came out for the National Book Awards.
Oh, yes, hang on.
And I was not familiar with a lot of the titles. So are there any on there that you have caught your interest over the months?
Let me call it up so I can be specific. I know they've sort of been doing that. Well, obviously Leave the World Behind is on that list. The Index of Self-Destructive Acts. Oh, The Vanishing Half is wonderful. That's about a book about two sisters. They're identical twins. They always will be. But they grow up in this small Black community. And as they grow up, one goes one way and one goes the other. The one stays in the same Southern town, and the other one passes for white and marries a white husband who knows nothing about her past. And so it's about what happens to the next generation and these two girls. And yeah, it's
What's
a lot
the
about,
name of that one?
it's called
Yes, what's the name?
The Vanishing Half, HALF.
I have to say, I haven't yet read the new Hilary Mantel. I read her first two, but it's pagey, and I was going to save it, but I don't know why. I need to go and read it.
Sometimes you just need to be at that point where it's time to read it. And yeah, I've had books that I resisted for a long time, and then when I finally sit down. Now, do any of you listen to audiobooks?
Yep, I do when I go out walking.
Oh, okay. Because I find that sometimes has been a way for me to access books that I have a hard time reading because they're so well done nowadays. I mean, they're, read by actors and actresses. So I've been sort of pleased at introducing myself to genres that I'm not wild about initially and taking a chance and getting a Diamond Doris. Okay, here's the book I wanted to talk about. Diamond Doris is the true story of the world's most notorious jewel thief. And Susan Braun, who I know many of you know, did a big review of this for the bookstore. This was she was born in 1930. She was a little Black girl from the Depression era South, and she married a Jewish boyfriend. Oh no, her Jewish boyfriend was married, but they started to hit small local jewelry shops. And this enabled her to buy a house, and she got a better wardrobe, and she began to charm the socks off of people at Tiffany's. And so she defied sort of society's conventions and bigotry. And the whole time she was a criminal, but she was so charming and conversational that she got away with a lot of it. So this is a memoir. This is by the actual, jewel thief. So it's sort of a Thelma Louise, The Heist, Ocean's 8 kind of story. So if someone wants a little fun, I would definitely give that one a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. House Lessons is a nonfiction book done by a local author, Erica Bauermeister. And it's a part memoir, part meditation. She and her husband were wandering in Port Townsend a while ago now.
Yeah.
And found a 100-year-old Victorian house. There's so many of those up there. And they just decided instantly that it was pretty run down, but they decided that they would buy that house and restore it. So it's the whole story of what happened there. And I don't know, she did a number of books by Eric Baumeister that have been, she recently did a book called The Scent Keeper, which I know a couple of book groups have read. And that was it. Earlier, she did The Lost Art of Mixing, The School of Essential Ingredients, which has been popular among book groups. She's a wonderful writer, and I would recommend that book too.
The COVID has changed the books that people read. I mean, have you noticed that in the bookstore?
It's interesting. The books have been so driven by headlines. Obviously, after the Black Lives Matter events earlier in the summer, all of our best-selling books were anti-racism, a lot of that. So that was sort of at that period. Yeah, people did want to sort of escape into something that wasn't too frenzied, wasn't dystopian.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, they then would turn around and come back and look for those books. I think people are really trying to come to grips with what's going on, both in our country, in our personal lives. And so I don't know if it's changed so much. I mean, there was a book that was kind of popular this summer that was literally titled The Beach Read. And good book, nothing wrong with it, but I actually think it's ended up that the beach reads are selling less these days than books that are trying to sort of get us beyond where we are now.
I wanted to say that I did read The Scent Keeper.
Yes, what did you think?
And I really enjoyed it. So it takes place up in Canada, so the Vancouver region. But when she was writing it, I sat there going, "Is this Bainbridge Island? Where is she?" You know, it was like, "Where the heck? She can't. She has to be around here somewhere."
Well,
And
go
because
ahead.
because it doesn't deal with all the mess
Right.
that we're living through right now, it has a happy ending.
Yes.
It starts out, I thought it was sort of fantasy when I first started reading it, so it gets you into this little escapist fantasy world, but it is a nice story. So I do recommend it if it's also something that you're looking forward to say, I just need something else besides reality. And it's sort of set up in this area.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And when she came and spoke at the store, she told us that the little island where the father and the daughter lived for that period was pretty much based on this out of the way place between Vancouver Island and the mainland. So, but yes, she was definitely informed a lot by what's going on in our community too. She's very connected with us too. You know, there's another book that's set up in that general area that came out earlier this year called The Glass Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone read that?
Yes, I didn't like it, but Sheila liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah, I quite liked it. I didn't like it as much as her other one. I can't remember what was. Oh goodness.
I know it. What was
Yes,
the
I
first
liked
one?
her other one better.
Stations.
Station 11.
Station 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked that one. We did that for our book club, right? Yeah.
We did.
Station 11, and I'm glad to have read The Glass Hotel. It wasn't nearly as good as Station 11, but it was.
I agree
good.
with you.
It
Yeah.
was okay, you know.
Yeah. I enjoyed it because I was living in New York City around the time of the whole what was his name, the Ponzi scheme guy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I recognized a lot of that. Yeah. You know, I'm not sure this would be a cup of tea for all of you all, but there's a young man, maybe he's not so young anymore, but named Lenny Kravitz. Anybody heard of Lenny Kravitz? Lenny Kravitz is a musician. And he grew up with all sorts of opposites in his life. His mother was a Black actress. His father was a Jewish reporter. He listened to both Jackson 5 and Led Zeppelin. You know, he had a lot of yin and yangs in his life. And this is kind of an interesting story about a real creative kid who struggles and has to span sort of multiple worlds and benefits greatly from having all these different worlds in his life. So anyway, that's if you're interested in sort of an unusual bio or want to give it to a younger person who knows who he is better than I do.
I love Lenny Kravitz. I'm going to be definitely buying that book.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
His music, so.
Yeah, his music is awesome.
Did you know that his mother was the one who played the interracial couple on The Jeffersons? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah.
I found that out on CBS Sunday this week, and I was like, oh, I know her.
Yeah. Memorial is a book by Brian Washington, and it's set down in Texas, and it's about it's sort of a family saga, and it's about two men. One is a Japanese American chef, and his partner Benson, who's a Black daycare center worker. And they've been together for a while, and they're kind of at that point where they're thinking, well, really, are we a good couple? And then all sorts of things happen. The chef, the Japanese American chef Mike, his mother comes to stay with him, and at the same time, he finds that his estranged father is back in Japan dying. So he takes off to go spend time with his dad. And so you have the mother and then his partner living together. And so, yeah, it's kind of an interesting look at what makes families, what makes them stronger. You know, will they be okay? It's kind of a light book. You know, it's you know, it's just a family story. So that's one I would also recommend. That comes out, I know, in the end of this month.
I read earlier this summer, which is light, was a book called The Gown. And
I don't know that. Tell me.
It's a story of how the present Queen's wedding dress was made. It's based on fact, but there's a slight fiction to it. And I actually sent it to my aunt, who was 100 years old this year in England, as a present, because what do you buy somebody who's 100? But it's really the story of how her wedding dress was made and the people who made it, and just about life in London straight after the Second World War, when everybody had coupons. It's not a heavy read, but it was interesting.
I like that.
It was different.
Yeah, I love books that are historical fiction and give you great background and sort of, and yeah, no, that sounds like my kind of book. I'm writing this down.
Yes, the girl was called Jennifer Robeson.
So there's another book from an author. It's called Solutions and Other Problems, and it's by, she's kind of a Ali Broche, and she's written a lot of things like solutions. I mean, she's kind of a humorist in a way, but she's written this book, Hyperbole and a Half. That's the other book she wrote. So these are sort of comedic autobiographical essays. And I know that Bill Gates says that what he likes about this book is she has the observational skills of a scientist, the creativity of an artist, and the wit of a comedian. And one other person said he would love to sit in a room of people, full of people reading this book at one time so that they could all share the laughter together.
I was actually tackling my to be read shelf that is now like overflowing because I keep adding books.
Yeah.
So what I'm reading now is good old Annie Proulx.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That old Ace in the Hole.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah, so Mr. Bob Dollar and trying to figure out what he's doing with selling hog farms. It's so far I really enjoy it. It reads just like a little small town gazette, little vignettes of it's good. Yeah. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Thank you for coming, Victoria, and we'll hope we'll hear from you again.
Well, it's nice now that people can actually come in. The last time I was on here, we weren't able to go out at all. So it's really fun. Yeah. I hope I see some of you in the store, even if it's just to talk on your way to the library.
So thank you everybody for joining us today. And remember, you can see this on YouTube. Victoria, frequently, YouTube has a lot of people checking in. So
wonderful.
Thank you, Janet.